welcome to the show, everyone. Really pleased today to welcome Marcus Cauchi, who is a Sandler trainer for the last 16 years, based out of Berkshire in the UK. And Marcus has got a very long and distinguished sales career. He was also a headhunter for about a decade as well. So Marcus, really pleased to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and Marcus in particular focuses on the channel, even though he's a general sales practitioner and can cover all segments. And he wrote a book called Making Channel Sales Work. So, so Marcus, let's dive into that. So, why did you write that book, and what were you trying to achieve with the book? You obviously saw some opportunity there.
Well, I've been working with channel sales on and off for about 15 years. And I used to recruit for the channel as well. And it struck me that it was an underserved market. And I came across a 1-inch piece by Forrester in about 2015 to early 2016. And it said that 90% of technology will be sold through partners by 2026. So I figured that was quite a good niche. Then I did a search on Amazon and discovered at the time there were 150 books written about it. Whereas for direct sales, there were 365,000. So I figured that was an underserved niche. Today, there are 180 books written about the channel.
So still pretty underserved, but that's a pretty interesting number, that 90% of tech sales will go through the channel.
Well, it goes beyond that. 75% of every product sold on the planet today across all 26 verticals is sold through partners.
Well, I think that's very under-realized, because there's so much focus on direct, and there's so much glamour associated with the direct sales team.
Well, channel for years has been the ginger-haired, illegitimate, ugly stepdaughter of direct sales. Direct sales is the golden child. It's where people go to develop their fast-track career. It's where they end up as the VP of sales. Then their next move is to move into CEO. All the money, the training, the effort, the resources has really gone into that. And channel has been, the second-class citizen. But when you think about it, the problem has been that very often Tim Nice but Dim, who didn't quite cut it in direct sales, but they like him at the Christmas party. Maybe the CEO's wife likes him and they don't want to fire him. So what they do is they say, well, what harm can he do if we put him in the channel? Well, you're moving the decimal point on his target to the right, possibly once or even twice. He can do a hell of a lot of harm. The other people who have tended to be shoved into the channel are greenhorns, who are literally just out of short trousers, and they're going to cut their teeth. And when you think about it, the average MSP owner is 58 years old, and some snot-nosed 22-year-old who's straight out of university and out of initial training, turning up and saying, great, what are you going to sell for me this year? Is bound to result in a warm and friendly relationship. And when you think about it, given that the average MSP is 58, a lot of them want to retire fairly soon.
Yeah, sure.
But this year, in 2018, their average margins were squeezed down to 17%.
Right.
That's barely break even. They're working 70 to 100-hour weeks. They can hardly scale above 10. 96% of MSPs never get above 10 people. So there's no value in the business. And at the beginning of 2018, 30% wanted to exit their business because of the pressure that they're under. By the end of 2018, 70% wanted to exit their business, but they can't. They're trapped.
Right. So if the MSPs are under so much pressure, where is the growth coming from in the channel? Is it some new types of channels, some different areas of the channel that look more promising?
Well, there's been a split in the channel. As people have moved, certainly in tech, as they've moved, and tech is really the leading force in this. Others are catching up, but as stuff has moved onto the cloud and into as a service, vendors are starting to try and disintermediate. And what they're doing is they're creating marketplaces so that the partner will bring people and then they'll buy off the marketplace and then the partner will get paid a percentage. and through the ecosystem, they will make their money through services, implementation, and value add. But you also have a shadow channel that's being developed, which is, I think, 36% of MSPs that were sold in the last 4 or 5 years were bought by accountants, because their core business, audit, has been squeezed down to the 17% margin as well. So they're now looking for value add. So, I mean, the big question is, do you really want your security done by an accountant?
Yeah,
it's
good question.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
What we're seeing now is a lot of real niching. The narrower you niche, the more dominance you can have within your particular space. So instead of being an MSP that operates in healthcare, you might narrow it down to care homes, but then you may even narrow it down to care homes in the east side of Chicago. And you become the dominant player in that space. And so you can develop a lot of growth that way, because, again, people forget, not only is direct sales the golden child, but new business has always been seen as the golden child as well.
Absolutely.
That's the Holy Grail. Well, actually, what you keep matters more than what you make. And the problem is that people don't really segment their accounts into keep, attain, recapture, expand, and sack. So there's a bunch of your clients you should probably get rid of and refer to your competition so they can damage their balance sheet and eat up their time. The keep accounts are babysitting accounts that there's no growth, but as long as you look after them, they're good bread and butter business. Attain are the new logo.
And good profit. Generally good profit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, they're good bread and butter. Just look after them and they'll look after you. Attain accounts are the new logo wins, but they cost 6 to 25 times more to sell to than expand accounts.
Yeah, understand. Yes.
Now, again, this is where, when we developed the book, we integrated a lot of our enterprise selling tools into the program, because we identified that actually most organizations are atrocious at really maximizing their wallet share within an account. I was working with one of my MSP clients before Christmas. Brand new account, started working with them, and our first exercise in 20 minutes showed up 153% growth potential across 5 divisions operating out of just their top 10% accounts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've done that analysis myself with a few clients, and they start off thinking, oh, we need a big initiative on new business or a prospecting initiative. But when you say, okay, let's look at what you've got already, and you tell me how much upside there is in this account, in this account, in this account. You know, it's mind blowing. Like they can probably grow 30 or 40% a year for the next 3 years from their base.
They can grow way more than that in many cases. I mean, I'm talking serious triple-digit growth, just from their top 10%, top 10 accounts within their entire client base. I was talking to a new law firm yesterday that I'm training. They are a family law firm, and I was talking to the chief executive, and their challenge is expansion and growth as well. A CEO's job function, his job description or her job description is grow. That's it. Okay. Yep. And the problem that they were facing was that their marketing seems to be delivering fewer and fewer leads. But when they look at their most profitable business, it invariably comes through introducers, their channel. And they haven't got a strategy or a system for recruiting more partners and onboarding them and developing them and showing them how to sell their services. Because again, the huge mistake I see people making when they're developing a channel is they are what we call eye-centered. They sell selfishly. They're not partner-centric, and the book is all about partner-centric selling. And there are 2 critical questions that you have to ask before you ever go out to the channel. What is it? What's in it for our partners? And what are we doing to make sure they want to sell on our behalf? When you have 20, 30, 50 vendors on your roster, How is one vendor going to grab your attention, grab the attention of your salespeople, and make them want to put you at the top of the pile?
Yeah, can you just explain what you mean by I-centered for a minute, just to clarify?
Selfish. It's
Yes.
all about me, 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 me. What are you going to sell for me this month? What have you got for me this month? Now, we're developing a program called the Road to Channel Excellence, and it's about creating a shared vision. Organizations and teams that have common purpose outperform organizations and teams that don't. So this is about creating alignment right from the outset. It's making sure that your personal vision, goals, and objectives align with mine, and finding out where the crossover is so that we're working together in genuine partnership. Partnership is about both sides making each other perform better. Now, channel partners are in business for their reasons, not the vendor's reasons, not the salesperson's reasons.
Yep.
And if you're not putting money in their back because they are coin operated, they're going to go dark on you within 90 days. And the important thing to aim for is getting the second sale within the first 90 days. Because the first one they'll have brought to you, typically. It's the second sale that matters. It's the one that you work on collaboratively as genuine partners so that you start putting money in their back. If you do that second one, you've got a very high probability that they will continue to work on your behalf. If you don't, they'll go dark on you, and all the time, money, resource, effort, opportunity cost you've invested will just go to waste, which is why so many partnerships just die on the vine.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and you wonder why more people aren't doing it. Like, the channel's got certain skills, the vendors have got certain skills. You know, it makes sense to put them together, and it's going to be a stronger whole. And I know I've had a lot of success in the past where you have that, if you like, that shared plan that you work on together, and it's like, okay, I'll bring in half the business, you guys bring in half, right? Okay, I'll bring in these accounts, you guys, that'll get you going, but we want you to take our product into your base, say, and do the other half, or something similar like that. You get some agreement of the division of labor.
Well, we always talk about a win-win-win. There has to be a win for the end customer, because you're in business because of the customer, not in spite of them. And what they're looking for is a solution to their problems. The organization that has a better handle on the customer's problems is the partner. In tech, certainly, you are probably just one component in the stack. So increasingly, what you're going to start seeing is more partner selling with partner. The vendors are going to have to be able to get attention by delivering value, and they're going to have to learn how to collaborate. I see a number of the megalithic vendors who have come from an enterprise direct sales kind of background really struggle to move off the sell them site licenses, come back every 3 years, do a drive-by shooting, sell them some more, into the subscription model of as a service and moving onto the cloud. And there's one vendor that I'm talking to at the moment where they are hitting 36% of their target annually, and they have been for 4 years because they haven't made that psychological or cultural shift. Now we're talking pretty much £100 million a year just in the UK. Now this is a global organization, and if they don't do that, they are going to die on the vine as well. But what's really interesting is because the culture hasn't shifted, their average turnover of new salespeople into this space is 5 months. From starting the job to leaving, 5 months. Now, what that creates is vendor fatigue, because the partners get sick and tired of seeing just a new face.
Absolutely. It's a common refrain from partners, isn't it? Like they got to train a new rep from the vendor.
Absolutely.
Train them on the business, and 5 months, you're not going to get any productivity by that stage, and you've got to train.
They won't have found the toilet by then.
Yes.
They'll be lucky to even have had 2 or 3 conversations. And what we have here is a massive a need for a massive shift in thinking. Vendors don't generally like to spend money training their partners how to sell. They'll train them on product, but product is showing photos conduct of your ugly children to strangers.
Sure.
When you teach people
again,
about,
isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why I think you should buy my shiny new widget.
Sure.
No one gives a damn. They just do not care. Now, the way we've wrote the book and we've developed the program, because over the years we've evolved this, we've realized that what needs to happen is you need to create this common purpose and a shared plan. You need to then map out your territory, your accounts. You need to understand which ones you're going to keep, which ones you're going to expand, which ones you can recapture because perhaps you lost them, which ones you're going to get rid of, and which ones you're going to win cold. Then you have to co-develop a go-to-market plan, a pursuit plan. You need to do pre-call planning. It's called debriefing. You need to rehearse. You need to understand whose role is what in the sale. You need to midwife your deals. And I think that
this is very context specific, very context specific training then. So this is not, the vendor investing in telling people how to sell, but it's really how to sell their solution in their target vertical, or and how to prepare.
And not only that, but to have a shared language, a shared system. So one of the things that we see a lot is vendors. I was coaching one of my MSP clients yesterday, and she was given a lead to a brand new opportunity. They'd done a little bit of work in a different division, but it was a different geography, different vertical. Yep. And it turned out from my coaching with her that this was probably just a fishing trip, and they were using it as a benchmark to see if they could beat up Column A, their existing vendor. And that's exactly what it was. So instead of spending 45 minutes, we closed it off within 15 minutes, disqualified out. But what we've done is we've identified other areas where they can actually build opportunity outside of the vendor that referred them, but in other areas of their business and other aspects. And the problem is that very often partners bring bad opportunities as well, because they don't understand that they have equal rights, they have equal business stature to the customer. The customer is the person with the problem and the commodity. It's called cash. Okay?
Sure.
And the MSP is the expert in solving those kind of problems. The vendor has expertise in solving part of that problem. Now, the real challenge here is to get that common language so that people understand the difference between a lead, a suspect, a prospect, a qualified prospect, a closable prospect, and expand opportunity. Because what most people call a prospect barely counts as someone who has a pulse. A prospect is someone who is in your target market, has a pain you can genuinely fix today, is a decision maker who is willing and able to make the decision to buy, is a decision maker who is willing and able to make the investment of time, money, resource, and give you access to the people that you need within their organization to qualify, and is working towards a clearly defined timetable for making their decision and executing the implementation.
Yeah. It's not a trivial exercise, Marcus, what you're talking about. You say, okay, we need a common language for what a prospect is, what a lead is, what's qualified. Even some companies don't even have that defined well internally, or they don't have it defined between sales and marketing or between different sales groups. So I think it is well worth spending time, let alone working with a partner. You're going to have a totally different idea of what that word means. So it's a great place to start.
Well, Stephen, you've touched on another really important point. Training does not work. Okay, now as a trainer, that sounds like a heresy, but most training is just feed them from the fire hose and forget. Now, training that does work is long-term, reinforced. It's multi-sensory and multi-channel. So you have instructor-led training, you have online training, you have self-study, you have participative training, you have collaborative training, you have self-teaching. So one of the things that we get our partners and vendors to do is regular huddles where they share lessons learned. They do surging, which is where they prospect together. They stop every 20 to 40 minutes. They do a review, capture lessons, identify problems, roadblocks, share those ideas, talk about them, then get back on the phones. And the training that we're implementing with our clients, we're talking about 3 to 5 year trajectory. We're not talking about one-offs,
Right.
and this is monthly physical training, daily self-study, daily accountability. Now, very few organizations are going to play by those within those constraints, because they'll say, I need my people out on the road. Well, do you know the opportunity cost? The cost of a bad hire in direct sales, the received wisdom is around 5 times salary. If you get away with 5 times salary, God is smiling on you and he's showering you with glitter. Okay. The reality is, I wrote an article on this a couple of years ago called The True Cost of a Wrong Hire. It's anywhere between 30 and 125 times salary. Now,
wow, how does that work? You talk about in a sales role, because there's a sales target.
That's a direct sales role.
Yep.
That's a B2B, typically medium to high ticket sales role.
Yeah.
Could be 30 to 125 times salary. When you take into account the cost of recruitment, the cost of training and onboarding, the cost of managing them, the number of deals and leads that they burn through because they can't close a wet paper bag, the amount of opportunity cost of the lifetime value of customers who they don't win, leave the door open for a competitor, and the customers that they piss off, and basically they'll end up leaving and taking all of that revenue and the referral potential and the cross-sell and upsell. It's easily that kind of number. Now, you can multiply that by the number of salespeople a manager has for hiring a bad manager. And with a channel manager, you can multiply it again, not only by the number of partners, but by the number of salespeople within those partners who are not going to perform because the channel manager hasn't got a clue.
Yeah, it's such a critical role, isn't it? Yeah. So you're seeing some organizations, through your examples, there's some organizations grabbing hold of this and realizing, how beneficial the channel can be for their business, right? Yeah.
We worked with one vendor in the security space. They came to us at 80 million turnover. 5 years later, they were doing $1 billion.
So you're talking about a big cultural shift. Like, it seems organizations happy for their salespeople to be sucked into product training and product updates once or twice a week, or almost every day.
You do what was done to you.
Yeah.
I have a poster on my wall from an organization called despair.com. It's my third favorite website on the planet. And it says tradition, and it's got a picture of the Pamplona bull run. You know, where a bunch of very drunk men dress up in white and run in front of 200 very angry bulls. Okay. And it says tradition. Just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean it's not incredibly stupid.
Yes.
And
right.
You just have to look at the acts of repetitive stupidity and self-sabotage that are perpetuated in direct sales, in management, in channel. A channel manager, actually, if you look at what a good channel manager looks like, they are closer to a general manager in profile than they are to a sales manager. And a channel chief is much closer to a chief executive profile than they are to a VP of sales. So I predict that there are going to be 2 new routes to the chief executive role. One will be the head of data analytics, because that's the person who has insight into everything. And the channel chief. I think those 2 will replace the VP of sales and the CFO.
It's interesting. No, because I know examples of really great channel managers, and they have a role in running the resellers or the channel's business almost, right?
Absolutely.
They're in the management meetings. They're coaching the sales managers. They're stepping in and they're part of that business. The guys that really do that well.
Well, when you look at a channel manager's role, Forrester, Jay McBain at Forrester produced a wonderful infographic, and he puts their functions into 6 different buckets. So strategy and design, find and recruit, enable and develop, incent and motivate, co-sell and co-market, and manage and report. There are over 90 different functions that a channel manager may have to get involved with. So, in the morning for the first couple of hours, probably putting together some route to market plan, then identifying the competitors coverage, working with partners on their playbook, then looking at the rebates and the MDF and spiffs, then reporting, then working with partners to co-develop marketing collateral, and then reporting back or signing contracts. And that could just be the morning.
Hey, Marcus, I'm not going to let you go past so quickly on this cost of making a bad hire, right? And just thinking about this laundry list of skills and tasks and expectations on these channel managers, or call it the channel manager of the future. So how are we going to hire and train these people? Where are we going? Are these MBAs, or
no?
Where are we getting them from?
Really interesting question.
Yeah. Tell me
Jay
the magic source here.
Well, Jay McBain has done some research on the top channel chiefs. 80% of them don't have a degree. They're fighters. Okay. Now, in the book, we actually have an entire chapter dedicated to how to identify, design, and hire an ideal channel manager.
I didn't get to the appendix. Sorry. I'll look
That's all right. Well, wrong hires are the single highest hidden cost in any business. Second highest hidden cost is hidden cost of sale, and third highest hidden cost is the hidden cost of RFPs and responding to them.
Okay, wasted resources on deals we shouldn't be in. Yeah.
Precisely. So we wrote the book with those three things in mind, because the vendor can easily have their scarce and expensive resources sucked into the wrong opportunities. But if you hire the wrong ones, you will end up burning through leads. You'll end up having opportunities drag on. So you end up with either a Dolly Parton or a Kim Kardashian kind of pipeline. So it bulges at the top full of rubbish, or the deals stagnate and constipate the pipeline. And so they get big at the bottom. As a result of that, what you end up with is inaccurate forecasting, which means that you can't invest because you're always saving for a rainy day, playing it safe.
Yep.
We're working with a hospitality client of ours, and 30% of their business comes through partners. Okay, there's a lot through online travel agencies, and direct, but 30% comes through travel bookers who do corporate travel, that kind of thing, and agencies. And what we've been able to do is get their forecasting variance from 40 to 60% either way, normally below, to 0.5% accuracy.
Wow. Okay.
That took
a big topic.
12 weeks to get down to that.
Yeah, because 50% forecast accuracy is about standard these days, right?
Well, not only is it as bad as flipping a coin, but now last year, Insights. I can't remember. I
think CSO Insights.
CSO Insights.
Forecast accuracy. Yes.
Well, they and also Salesforce. Last year was the first year since records began where less than 50% of reps worldwide hit target. 44% of reps hit target worldwide.
Right.
Now that's direct sales. Now, those would be the salespeople within the partners as well, but that's a shocking indictment of management and leadership and the training industry and of sales, lots of emphasis on sales enablement. It's like in IT security. I was coaching one of my security clients, and she went in to talk to an 80,000 person company. They just blew £55 million on IT security. 90% of their vulnerability comes from human error, of which they spent nothing.
Yes.
Okay. Training and sales enablement, lots of money spent on sales enablement, but they don't like spending money on training, and it gets shunted to the people who don't know anything about the real life role. L&D is fine at the technical execution of running, designing training programs, but they don't understand the content. One of the reasons why I joined Sandler in the first place, we only recruit as franchisees and associates, salespeople, and we teach selling. They're not trainers who teach sales. And therein lies the rub. If you don't have the scar tissue when you're in front of an audience of gnarly, hairy-ass salespeople, who then turn around.
They'll tear you
They
apart.
will rip you, they'll tear you apart.
Yes.
So I have never yet had a situation where a salesperson has asked me a question and I've had to say, you know, Stephen, I don't know. I'll get back to you, or ask your manager. We fix it on the spot.
Yes.
And it has to be regular as well, because like washing, you don't do it once and then it stays fresh. Okay.
Yep.
Salespeople. So this is the problem with our profession. Selling is a profession. It is the oldest one. The other one's just a subset,
Yep.
by the way. And selling, how most salespeople get told they're a salesperson is they get given a business card and a database and a telephone and saying, congratulations, you are one.
Yeah.
And if you're really unlucky, they'll give you a day or two of product training.
Yeah.
So then you'll talk about product.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah? And then you wonder why there's such a massive turnover and burnout and so few people hit target consistently.
Yes.
It's obscene. So
Sure.
when we take clients on, we always talk about it as if you're just about to join a PhD in selling. And it is hard because selling is a microcosm of life. You are dealing with irrational people. You cannot sell to the wrong bit of the brain and expect it to make a decision.
Sure.
But when you talk about features and benefits, when you talk about product, you're trying to sell to the neocortex.
No, this is a paradigm shift, Marcus, you're talking about, and going back to what you said earlier about your daily practice, daily tasks, learning daily. Like we really, that's a big shift from where we are, but I can see it's very powerful. I spoke to Andy Paul recently, and he's very much on that same thing, like daily exercise. Even if it's 10 minutes online, doing an exercise every day, it's going to reinforce and keep you fresh. I've been selling for 30 years. I'm still learning stuff, every week, every month, and absolutely love it. And we've got to really encourage that.
Well, there's not a day gone by in the last 30 years where I haven't done at least 2 hours of self-development.
Right.
And I can see the difference between me and those who don't. I'm not bragging, but I have a 96% close rate. If I disqualify ruthlessly, and if they qualify, 96% buy.
Yes.
I know people who are lucky to get 1 in 20, and people buy in spite of how they sell, not because of it.
Sure.
Now, I am typically...
And you touched on a really big thing there, qualifying out. So it's not even saying I've got great sales skills and how to close, but there's some, and Sandler I know is very good on the qualifying out, right? You almost need the customer to convince you. The customer should be convincing you that this is worthwhile, right?
The customer should do all the work. They should do the presentation. They should handle their own objections, and they should close themselves.
Sure.
I have a philosophy. One of my heroes is a guy called Karl von Clausewitz, and he wrote a book. He was a Prussian officer. He wrote a book called On War, and it's the Bible for Sandhurst, West Point, and all the military academies for tactics and strategy. And he used to hire Prussian officers for 2 qualities: laziness and high intelligence. Minimum effort, minimum loss of life. I think you should recruit salespeople and channel managers for exactly the same qualities, because I think we operate a philosophy in my business: do less but better on purpose. The first question I ask myself every day is, what can I do to make my life or someone else's life simpler or easier? If you can de-skill, if you can make things simpler, easier, more efficient, you can pass those functions down the chain of command. You can delegate. You have to make fewer decisions, which means you can spend more time on design and on strategy and on recruitment. And this is another critical area. Most people in management see recruitment as an infringement of their day job. It is their number 1 task.
Absolutely.
Recruitment should be a daily activity. When you consider that 1 in 200 salespeople are A players, that's 0.5%. If you interview 1 person a day, odds are you're going to find 1 A player in the year.
Yes.
You'll probably find 6 to 12 good B players that could have A potential, okay? But you need to be building your bench, because the program that we've developed, well, you say always, if only it were the case. But what you need to think about is, if you are, my speciality, my niche is working with ambitious owners of technology vendors who want to scale up fast without loss of control. Okay, so I'm focusing just on that area for my business. Now, There are 50,000 of those businesses worldwide. In my geography, they're probably about 1,500 to 1,800. I'm still going through the lists at the moment.
Yeah.
Of those, I reckon 3% are likely to buy into our philosophy. But that 3% constitutes the vendor and all of their partners. And as they scale, and I'm talking about 300, 500, 1,200%, they have to be planning 18 to 24 months in advance. They need that bench filled a year before they ever need the vacancy filled.
Yeah.
Because the moment the vacancy comes up, they want to replace them. And if you think about the cost of hiring, typically it takes 12 to 16 weeks. When I was headhunting, it used to take the clients 12 to 16 weeks to get someone from the opportunity into post.
Yeah, like I see, like most sales leaders are very reactive on their hiring. Like definitely, I always, when I was a sales leader, I always wanted to have a bench ready.
Yeah.
Even if my headcount was full and the team was going well, just having that bench on the outside all the time gave me confidence to drive the team. If someone had to leave, they would leave on my terms, not on their terms.
Absolutely. And it would only take you a month to fill it.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, when you actually find an A player, you'll probably fit him into the organization somewhere. You'll say, you'll find the money, you'll find the territory. They'll create business just coming in, right? So,
well, Mike Michalowicz, who wrote Profit First, which is a fantastic book. If any of your listeners and viewers haven't come across it, Mike Michalowicz, Michalowicz.
Okay.
And it's called Profit First. But he has a philosophy which is 1 A player equals 3 B players, 1 B player equals 3 C players, therefore 1 A player equals 9 C players. Pay the A player 2.5 times as much as you would anybody else, and get rid of all of your your C players.
Yes,
get rid of
overhead,
the bottom 80%.
Much
Absolutely.
less management time. So many benefits.
If you make a wrong hire, you buy a management problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Get rid of the bottom 80% of your salespeople, the bottom 80% of your customers, the bottom 80% of your partners, and you will make more profit with less effort, and you will have more time to focus on recruiting more of the good people.
Yeah. So Marcus, I think most people, shockingly, when they're selecting or they're interviewing, they think they're pretty good at assessing someone through a casual type of interview, or what you call an unstructured interview, right? Someone comes in, we look at their CV. Oh yeah, they've been in the same industry. Oh, they build a rapport. We've got some common things, and like, what's wrong with that? And what should we be doing?
Okay, we partner with a group called the Divine Group, and they do psychometric profiling and assessments. Yep. And their research says that unstructured interviewing results in the right hire 14% of the time.
Yep, sure.
In blackjack, in a casino, you have a 40% probability of winning. Frankly, you would be better spending your money at the casino blackjack tables. Okay?
Yep.
Now, the problem is that they don't look at the predictive hiring criteria. Most people recruit for skills, experience, and results, which say Stephen used to be good, perhaps. Maybe he was carried. Don't know whether he was burnt out or he was just damn lucky.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
What all of those are retrospective. They're lagging indicators. They're backward looking. The predictors of success, and we built this into our program as well, is this search model. And it looks at skills, experience, attitudes, beliefs, and values, which is a leading indicator, results, cognitive abilities, the ability to learn, adapt to the current environment, bounce back, resilience.
Yes.
And the most important of all is habit. What people do repeatedly in the past, they will do repeatedly in the future. So what are the habits that a salesperson, a channel manager, a channel chief, a CEO needs to have and bring with them? Because they're unlikely to develop them, or if they will, then it's going to take some time and investment. So what are the critical habits? Well, I want a prospecting habit. I want a questioning habit. I want a disqualifying habit. I want a listening habit. I want good organizational habits. I want a planning habit. What I don't want is someone who's got the gift of the gab. What I don't want
Yep.
is someone who it makes it all about themselves. So in terms of attitudes, I want them to have vulnerability. I want them to know when they can't do something. I want them to be self-aware. I want them to be able to modify and adapt their behavior to different personality styles. I want them to be able to read people. I want them to be collaborative. I don't want them to be a lone wolf if they're in a channel role. I need them to care more about looking after other people and helping them get their needs met than their selfish, egotistical objectives. So these are the things that you have to
So
look
how do
for.
we dig that out? So you're saying an assessment can dig that out, or we can do that with interview technique as well?
First of all, you need to design the candidate. So at the back of the book, there's the appendix in terms of designing the ideal candidate.
Sure.
And you need to build a search model based on the must-haves, nice-to-haves, and red flags. Okay, so a red flag is an instant disqualifier. Lack of a must-have is an instant disqualifier. So the interview may end after 4 minutes.
Yep.
Be ruthless about it. If they're not a good fit, apologize and get them out.
Sure.
Now, once you've built that model, then you can focus on which of the must-haves you're going to interview for in the first interview. In fact, at the recruiter stage, have them pre-select candidates who only candidates who have those 3 or 4 must-haves.
Sure.
If they send you candidates who don't have them, tell them that their time is numbered and they have one more chance to mess it up. Then at first interview, a couple more must-haves. And then at second interview, a couple more must-haves. In between, give them tasks. Make sure that you agree up front what's going to happen at the end. And design your questions to establish patterns of behavior. So no hypotheticals. What would you do if? Terrible question. Okay. Instead, Stephen, talk me through 6 partnerships you established from cold and took to a 7-figure turnover.
Right.
And I want them in quick succession, because if you have to really think about it, odds are it's not a habit. If you can't think of them, it isn't a habit. Now, a really good trick is when they tell you about a particular story, then ask them to tell it to you backwards. Because it creates cognitive dissonance if they haven't lived it. If they've lived it, they can work the sequence backwards. But if they haven't, they have to keep going to the beginning and then coming back, and then going to the beginning and coming back, and that blows them out the water. So an interview with a salesperson or a channel manager should not be a pleasant experience for the candidate.
Sure.
The person you hire is the one they will become under pressure. So put them under pressure.
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? Yeah, like most interviews just sort of run to a pretty similar formula. There's not a lot of pressure. And salespeople, even if they're not a great salesperson, they at least can build rapport and present well in one of those casual interviews, right? So I like your idea to change it up and see how they perform.
I had a client, he was from Yorkshire, and he was a little robust in his language, so I'll try and temper it.
Okay.
He hired, this was back in 1997, and he hired a guy for £90,000, which was a hell of a lot of money back then. And he said the only sale he ever did was the interview, because he never sold another bleep, 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 bleep thing.
Okay, right, yes.
You hire James Bond at interview, and they turn into Mr. Bean the minute they're on your payroll.
Sure.
You need to make sure you get the Mr. Bean in a tuxedo out of the pipeline and never get him onto payroll.
Yeah.
You need to have a robust selection and interviewing process. Then you need to have a robust 120-day onboarding plan. Whether you're recruiting a new salesperson or whether you're recruiting a new partner, the first 120 days are where they are putting you, the employer, or you, the vendor, on probation. Is my boss a total ass?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the job I was sold? Do I like the people I'm working with? Can I do this job? Do I want to do this job? Was I better off where I was? Do I regret this? Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you don't have a structured, robust onboarding plan, then the odds are astronomical that you will end up setting someone up to fail.
Yes.
Because it's that first 120 days that are critical. And then there needs to be a cadence of accountability and also a cadence of coaching. And what most managers class as coaching is not coaching. Coaching is getting the candidate or the individual to work the problem out for themselves through a Socratic approach by asking questions. But what most managers deem as coaching is, Stephen, I would do it this way. Do this, do this, do this.
Yes.
Yeah. That isn't coaching. That's
Sure.
passes for bad training.
No, exactly. And I've seen the surveys where you ask salespeople, are they getting coached? And 20% say they are, and managers say they coach 80% of their people, something like that, right? There's a big misunderstanding on what coaching is.
Pitiful.
On the spot management
Absolutely
or instruction.
pitiful.
Yes, yes.
Well, again, the key thing here is to understand that if you don't have a coaching culture, what you're going to end up doing is allowing people to reinforce what was done to them or reinforce bad habits and bad beliefs.
Yes.
You want to drive up revenue. You want to improve sales strategies. You want to be able to deliver a message that demonstrates value without talking about the product. So one of my favorite tests at interview is, Stephen, sell me the product you sell at the moment, but do not mention the company or the product.
It's a good one.
Yeah. And 90%, die on the vine.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Because I don't want to waste my time with wrong hires.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good one. And a couple of folks I've spoken to have said, hey, we should even try and get through a whole sales meeting without talking about our company or product.
You know, I never talk about my company or product. Who cares?
Exactly.
It's like showing snapshots of your holiday. I mean,
Sure.
yeah, the first 2 you're okay with, but by the 40,000s, you just want. I had a client who was asked me for a coaching call, so we were talking about it. And he said that his pre-sales people had produced a 90-slide PowerPoint.
Wow.
And why would you do that to somebody?
It's really scary. Like, we know that customers are much more. They care a lot more about where they spend their time. They're not giving vendors as much time as before. They're engaging later. When we actually go into that meeting and get their time, to waste an hour with a PowerPoint is just talking about ourselves is just crazy.
Well, this is something that really gets my goat. I saw a study fairly recently that something like 66% of buyers are already well advanced in the sale before they invite in a salesperson. That tells me something about sales culture, which is the salesperson hasn't done their job. They're not proactively prospecting. What they're doing is they're reactive and they're waiting for business to come their way, and they're behaving like a shopkeeper on the high street. That is not salesmanship.
Yep.
What passes for average in sales is atrocious. 98% of salespeople, I would say, are order takers, or if they're really bad, negotiators.
Yeah, no, I agree. And we've got to be careful looking at averages with a lot of these surveys. So let's say, okay, let's take the CEB number, 57% through the sales process before customers engage with us. Okay, well, if we've got our champions that are engaging at the 10% or 20% mark, there's a bunch of people at the other end, right, engaging at the 80 or 90%, right? So that's probably more the story rather than everyone at 57.
Absolutely, because most of the money comes in at the ones who come in at the 10%, with your top 2% of salespeople. Yeah, if you look at the average bell curve, you're going to have 4% of your salespeople in the market are going to be outstanding. They can practically walk on water. 16% excellent. Then you have a varying range in the 60% middle layer of mush. Then you have 16% who can barely wipe their own bottoms and 4% that can barely breathe unaided.
Yes.
And the problem is that most salespeople fall into that bottom 80%. But 80% of the profit comes from the top 20%, and 80% of that comes from the top 4. Yeah, I was talking to one organization, and there is a tenfold difference between their A players and their B players. And we are talking the difference between $1 billion in revenue versus 100 million.
Yes.
Now, the top end of that 100 million lot could become A players, but they're not investing any money in them because they're just focusing on their golden children.
Sure. Or maybe trying to hire more A's, which is very hard to do.
Absolutely.
You're probably better off investing in the good B's, right? And getting them up.
Absolutely. That is the sweet spot. And this is where you need to work with your channel as well. You need to identify which are the salespeople within specific partners who have a potential and coach and play favorites with them. Really work them so that they're bringing revenue on. And that acts as a beacon for everybody else in the organization. It attracts the attention of the owner. And you're working towards making the owner's dreams come true. You're helping the top performer meet their objectives. So you should be, as a channel manager, you should be coaching your top B players. You should be deal midwifing with all of the opportunities that come through. Disqualify ruthlessly. Focus on the ones you can and will win instead of the ones you could but won't.
Sure.
Don't focus on the low margin stuff. Eliminate discounting from the sales process. Because what you keep matters more than what you make. Focus on the margin. And this is the really interesting thing. At Dreamforce, Salesforce said that for every dollar that Salesforce sells in licenses, there is $4.14 in the ecosystem for their partners.
Wow.
The real money is there.
Yes.
The vendors are 1/5 of the value.
Sure.
To the value that the channel can be generating. Now, what we're going to see is more channel with channel, and within the channel partners, as they grow, channel chief will become a role. They will be working with other partners who specialize in different segments or different verticals or different product sets, and they will be managing multiple relationships with multiple vendors. And they will be the ones who have the power. That's what I see happening. I think that there'll be a small group of very, very powerful partners. And then there'll be a load of niche players who are very powerful within a specific, very tightly defined niche.
Yes. Yeah. What a great message that channel salespeople should be taking to the channel about how much revenue comes off the back of one of their license sales. And the good vendors are really doing that, aren't they? And traditional, like SAP, for example, there's massive channel practices built around SAP because I'm sure their numbers are even like your Accentures and Deloittes and everyone have got those huge SAP practices, and it's building around Salesforce and others.
Those sorts of organizations are still doing pretty well in their traditional core markets. I suspect, based on the research that I've done, that they're struggling to move into the mid-market, into cloud.
Oh, those big guys, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So my prediction is that they will not be in the Fortune 500 top 50 for much longer.
Right.
I think a lot of those organizations will find themselves, and this is the Nokia problem, it's the Polaroid problem, it's the Blockbuster problem. Letting go of what made you successful is really difficult, and they're very bureaucratic, they're very hierarchical, and they're going to get Ubered. I predict that there will be lots of shifts in the market over the next 5 to 15 years, and the people who are on it now, you're hardly going to see them. They're going to diminish unless they can change. And that starts with their leadership. If the leaders can't change, Nokia is a classic example. When the smartphone first came out, Nokia middle management was screaming to management, we have to get onto this bandwagon because if we don't, we're going to die. 3 years later, they would disappear. They were bought by Microsoft and they just vanished from the face of the planet until Microsoft couldn't make it work. And then they've just been sold back to Nokia for $1, I think it was. It was something ludicrous.
Wow. Yep.
And just to get rid of it. And you know, what you need to understand is that people don't really change. Woodrow Wilson said something really profound, which is if you want to make enemies, recommend change.
Yeah.
We're creatures of habit. We're creatures of programming.
Sure.
And unless someone is willing to attack themselves, they are going to go the way of the dinosaur. And this is why I think this is a fantastic opportunity, because they're probably going to be, I think the figure I read, they're going to be over 1 million vendors worldwide within the next 6 to 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that makes a good case for a channel to help customers sort out, you know, what's good, what goes together, what will solve their problem, right?
You have to have you have to have partners
Yeah.
because you can't scale. How are you going to find a sales force to grow massively? And the Israeli software companies are really interesting because they don't really have a choice. They have to go out because their domestic market is tiny, but they're really innovative.
Yeah.
And they're very aggressive growth objectives. So they've had to go through the channel again, a bit mixed. People are finding their feet with this. But what you really need to understand is that if you are going to grow, I don't think you have a choice. Channels has been around for years. It's not a trend; it's a wave.
Yes.
When you think that 75% of all products, if you look around your office, the table, the chairs, the computer, the keyboard, the mouse pad, the carpet, the paint, that was all probably distributed
Yes,
by a
sure.
partner.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's there, it's unavoidable, and unless you adapt, you will die. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
If you
No,
can't adapt to the current environment, you go extinct.
no, it's a fantastic opportunity for those that grasp it, because so many are doing it so poorly. If you can do this well and focus on the channel and focus on their needs and their business and help them, I think you'll do well. So Marcus, we've covered a huge amount of ground here. Is there some other key message before we wrap up that you'd like to get across to everyone?
Actually, there is. Interestingly enough, I'm just about to do a podcast with one of my partners who specializes in profiling partners before you recruit them. And that's the other side that I think is really critical. Make sure that when you are taking on partners, you are selective. What we see is that most vendors will try and recruit a land army. They'll go to an exhibition or an event, and people will come up, they'll ask about what they do. Oh, we'd be interested in selling that. And they sign up lots of conscripts. What they need to be doing is recruiting a special forces unit. So what we've been focused on in terms of delivering this program is that we have a vendor working with two or three really good close partners so that they get that alignment, common purpose, common language, common selling methodology, identify opportunities, go to market, 120-day ramp up, okay, working together. Then they come back with the next iteration of partners. So don't take on too many partners at once. Profile them in advance to identify, are they a good fit? And again, there's a chapter in the book about identifying what makes a good partner. There are 14 critical questions that you need to ask. These are things like, can we fit our logo over their office door? Because more often than not, you can't. Because sometimes the partner's operating out their back bedroom. Well, or they're operating out their back bedroom. Are your culture compatible and complementary? Is their CEO their top salesperson? Will they let you train them as your own? How difficult are they to deal with? Do they keep their word? How do they get new business? We always hear this, we get by referral and recommendation. Well, unless that's a system, then it's random and fluke.
Sure.
Yeah. You can systematize referrals. I do. Well over 90% of my business comes through my referral system, referral partnerships.
Yes.
So I can forecast 9 months in advance to within a 3 to 5% variance, just off the back of my referral pipeline.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Which means I can actually spend money on toys. Yeah.
A few people do it. Everyone knows it intellectually that the best business comes from referrals, and it's much easier than going out and new business. But how many people really institutionalize it? But
they don't.
It's a great.
It normally hits them on the side of the head from left field.
Yeah,
it's a nice surprise. You cannot predictably grow a business.
Yeah.
We're all about creating scale on purpose, fast, without loss of control. And for that, you need a plan. You need processes and systems. You need the right people. You need to measure the right things. You need to have a sales methodology that works, that everybody operates by. So you know exactly where anything is in the pipeline because you share that common language. You share that common purpose. You have systems and tools to help you. You hold each other accountable. This is damn hard because most people wing it. I always describe the most popular selling methodology on the planet as WeHap, winging it and hoping a prayer.
Yes.
That isn't professional selling. That's just basically turning up because you were too stupid to become an accountant. into a lawyer.
Yeah. Well, Marcus, I really want to thank you for your time today and your enthusiasm. It's really infectious, and I just think a lot of great tips and fantastic value for everyone. So,
Thank you.
so really appreciate it, and hope to catch up with you again soon.
Well, it'd be a delight, and if you want me back, if anyone wants me back, then although I
Absolutely,
think that'll be a surprise.
lots of
but
material.
they're very welcome to.
Yeah. Okay, Marcus.
Brilliant.
Take care, and thanks everyone for listening. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.